Welcome back to Walk at Arty Noobs with General Disturbance. This is a Type 61, it's a Tier 9 Japanese medium tank. It's located on the defending spawn of Siegfried Line Assault and it's under the command of General Anonymous. Well, this is one tank which is kind of unusual because the Japanese were actually ordered to manufacture it. Yep, the Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces in Japan ordered the Japanese nation to actually build the tank because they demilitarized after the Second World War and made themselves a fully peaceful nation. But after the Korean War broke out, they needed new tanks because they had to set up a self-defense force. And the unfortunate thing was that American tanks were just too big for Japanese soldiers, so they had to design a completely new tank which was slightly smaller, just so the drivers could actually operate the pedals, because Americans are notoriously tall, 6 foot and all, and the average Japanese person, well, is quite a bit smaller, in the 5 foot region. Well, a bit more than 5 foot, but anyway, you know what I mean. The problem was that the Japanese couldn't operate the standard tanks that the Americans had, like the Sherman, the M4, and the Chaffee. Well, they liked the Chaffee, but the Chaffee was no good against the T-34-85, so they had to find a new tank. Well, they came up with several designs like the STA-1 and the STA-2 and the STA-3, but eventually they actually came up with a tank that they liked, and between 1955 to 1960 they developed the design for the Type 61. Originally with a 90mm gun, but then with a 105mm gun. The 90mm is capable of, if I remember correctly, I think this one's actually a 90mm armed one. Yeah, it is. 240 Alpha. But with the 105mm, it was capable of doing 360 Alpha. That's the top gun. It's got decent penetration as well with the 105mm. 258mm. But on this one, because it's the 90mm, it's only got 219 with standard ammo, and with the heat rounds it'll do 275. Now initially they built 250 between 1960 and 1975, and by 1975 they have 560 of these available, and it's quite a bit smaller. But the thing is that what they've done is they've based it on the M47 and scaled it down, but it means it's also got less armour, and that's a bit of a problem, because if the enemy knows that you're driving a Type 61, they know you're vulnerable on armour, but you've got a very, very good gun. Nice shot into the Leopard, and again both high rolls, or one of them high roll. So the enemy knows you've got a very thin armour. If they know you've got thin armour but a very good gun, they will target you specifically because they know that they can bully you on the fact that you lack armour. Nice round into the FD-4202, but he was spotted, so he has to pull back. The armour at the front of this tank is only 85mm on the turret, 80 on the sides and 35 in the rear. On the front of the hull it's only 55mm, 45 on the sides, 25 on the rear, so very weak on armour all round really. Compared to some of the tanks it's up against at Tier 9, it's very weak. A bit like the Leopard prototype, you might say, just lacking armour. Now it doesn't have the speed of the Leopard prototype, it's only got 45 kilometers an hour. And another reason why this tank had to be small was because the Japanese railways are a lot smaller than the American ones. So American tanks would not fit very well on Japanese railways. Trying to get a shot into that Carnarvon, but he just won't pop up. All he's showing is the top of his turret, and so we know that the top of the Carnarvon is very well angled, and with the gun depression it's yeah, it's going to bounce off if you fire that one. And this tank does have good gun depression, 10 degrees, but you just need something to bite into, and he wasn't getting anything to play with there. This is an assault game, it's only 10 minutes long, So he's actually denying the enemy a chance to get into the field, and he gets a nice hit into the side of the turret on the Carnarvon where it's nice and weak. Now it's got great DPM, it's got good pen, good gun handling, good gun depression. Nice shot into the FV4202 again. And a high roll this time for 260. The thing that's bad about it is it's a very tall tank in terms of height and poor camouflage. And of course virtually useless armour. It also suffers from frequent module damage. You can see General Anonymous is getting good shots on these enemy tanks. And he's doing his job very effectively, because that Leopard can't be effective if he can't get into the field. I suppose one of the bad things about it is it doesn't have very good gun elevation. So if you're actually shooting up at something, you're going to have a bit of difficulty trying to get the gun to bear on them. And of course the top speed is very, very low. So it's not like your traditional flanking mediums. It's more of a sniper tank than anything else. And that Leopard, well, he was moving fast there. We're 2 down on the enemy at the moment, but it's down in the south that they're losing, because they're actually coming in towards the city centre, whereas up here the enemy's having real difficulty trying to get into the field. And the GSOR takes a nice hit, and he gets another one. You could say it's a nice stable platform. That's where the gun handling comes in, and he gets a kill. It's just a nice gun platform in many ways. You just got to watch out that the enemy doesn't spot you and doesn't get a nice shot into you, because then you are really going to suffer. He's managed to collect 2,500 hit points of damage so far.
Withdraw from that position.
He's trying to tell the Skoda, get back here, because you're in danger up there. He's using the gun depression as much as he can. It's got decent view range, this tank, as well. 400 meters, which is quite good. That same, well, it is the same as the Leopard Prototype A. But we're expecting now the enemy to come up from the south. Apart from that TNH 1000, we've got other tanks towards the south, and there's one of them. Batchat 12 ton. Oh! No, it didn't go in, but he can get another shot. Yeah, that's where the DPM really comes into play, because you can keep pumping these rounds into the enemy. It really upsets them when you keep getting hit by another tank you can't see. He didn't get the kill, but he didn't get spotted either. And that was a Batchat 12 ton. As you know, the hull for a Barask, if not the turret. Well, it's not the turret, obviously. It's the EBR 105 turret on a Barask, but he didn't spot him. And that was a light tank, so... Oh dear. Right, the enemy is now capping. And we're down to 3 players left. The Skoda, he's way out in the field, but we can get resets. Okay, and it's, remember, 1 minute 23 seconds left on the clock. They've only got 1 in the cap so far, and he's having a real good go at that TNH, who's had to pull into the corner. He's got no choice, but there is somebody capping, and I think it may be the enemy T30. He gets the kill on the TNH. Okay, Sharpview 204 headed in, pumps 1 in. Now he's got to try and stay out of those 4 guns. Oh, he took a big hit there from the T30, and it went straight through his armour. And he's just trying to bully this Sharpview 204 now to say, stay as close as he can to stop the guy from pumping the rounds in. Well, the Sharpview 204 has pulled away, but the enemy is near to capping, so he has to get near the cap, because there's only 2 of them left. The ISU 152 and General Anonymous. So if he's going to win this game, puts another 1 in. Come on, get the reset. There's a defender medal in it for you if you can. And he takes the kill now. Get the reset. Head straight for the cap. It's the T30. Oh, he's been reset. Okay, so they've only got a couple of seconds left. Stay alive. And he gets tracked, but he's won the game because they ran out of time. Talk about a lucky game. The clock ran out. General Anonymous was still alive, and he won because he was still alive. He got a second-class tanker in that game. He also picked up a fire for effect for doing more damage than the hit points of his own vehicle, and a bruiser medal for getting at least 5 critical hits. In fact, he got 10. And he got the high caliber for dealing the most damage in the game, and his win rate from that one was 8,121. And towards the end, yes, he was chasing that GDDR4 around saying, I've got you, I've got your measure. And yes, he did get him in the end. Let's have a look at the team score. 5,023 hit points. He easily got the high caliber on that one. Second highest damage was that T30, and of course he did put a round into General Anonymous, but he only got 2,692, and the third highest damage in the game turned out to be the Object 705 with 2,590. When it came to kills, it was actually shared between General Anonymous, the Caliban, and 2 members of the enemy team, the T30 and the Lorraine 15551. And they all got 3 kills apiece. 2 kills went to the ISU 152, who also managed to get a defender. He was the guy who got the reset. 2 kills went to the Object 772, and also to the Guard and the AMX CDC on the enemy team. There were 3 members in the enemy team still alive at the end. And when it came to base XP, yep, he's got that one, 1,111. So technically, he's got the top in all 3 columns. He was the only player to get over 1,000 base on the game. 860 went to the Caliban, 825 went to the ISU 152. He fired 37 rounds of 90mm ammunition. He didn't even have the top gun. He had the 90mm gun, which has got slightly better reload time, 7.36 seconds. And of course, it's got better DPM on this tank anyway. He got 28 direct hits on the enemy and 22 pens. 5,023 hit points of damage, of which 2,669 were at more than 300 meters, and a lot of those shots were actually taken to try and deter the enemy tanks from actually coming into the field, and they were generally successful because he was stopping the enemy coming in, and he even had a go at the tanks that came in from the south. He received 4 hits from the enemy, all 4 penetrating. Yeah, I'm afraid I did say it's got really dreadful armor, this tank. So bad, it really is bad. So yeah, you're not going to be stopping rounds unless of course they hit the wheels. 7 enemy vehicles were damaged, 3 killed, and 499 hit points of damage assistance, and he got 15 defense points when he reset the cap. On a free-to-play account, he earned 43,560 credits from this game, and after repair and ammunition respawn, yes, yeah, a lot of money on the ammo. 14,974 credits loss from the game. 1,111 base XP, no multipliers, so that's all the experience points he took away, but he got the win in the last second. Sadly, he couldn't get a Coliban off simply because there were only 3 members of the enemy team left. In fact, at one point, I seem to recall when he was just about killing the GeForce, the ISU 152 was still alive, but just resetting the T30. But obviously the ISU 152 died to that T30. I think it was the T30 who got him. And of course then the T30 was in reload, and there was just not enough time left to take out General Anonymous. So he just wandered in to see any more damage he could do. And yep, the clock ran out and he was still alive. And I was saying, stay alive! And I should think the whole of his team was saying, stay alive at that moment. Anyway, let's have a look at the armor. What there is, yeah, it's terrible. It really is dreadful armor. Lower plate 50mm comes out at 78 because it's well angled. Upper plate 55 comes out at 80 because it's fairly well angled. The turret's a bit better, 85mm, nicely rounded there. You can see it's actually coming out just over 100. The top of the turret is a bit weaker though. You can see there, 55mm if you get just over the mantlet, and actually coming out at effective 95.1. So you can possibly even penetrate the turret on this one, but it's much easier to penetrate the upper plate on this. Cupola is 65mm, effective 87. It's probably had a bit of American influence on that cupola because it sticks out like a sore thumb, but it does also on the STA1, the STA2 and the STA3 in a sense, so there's no change there. Sides are a lot weaker, 45mm on the side of the vehicle, same all the way to the back. Back of the bustle, 40mm, coming out at about 41, and the rear of the tank, you're looking at 25, 20, and the rear of the turret 35. So yeah, if you can get behind one of these, you'll perforate it every time. You can penetrate it fairly well from the sides. There's a nice little quadrant here where you can hit it. It's 45mm thick, so if this thing angles at you, just pump it through of holes and you'll have no problem. Don't bother to go for the front plate if it does angle like that. Just hit that little area there and it'll just go straight through. So we'll show the live model because I know somebody likes to see where the hitboxes is, and you can see that it is slightly angled on the side there, but it really doesn't have much effect, and other than that it's slab sided, and yeah, it's not going to stop shells, I'm afraid. That's the big weakness. Let's have a look at the modules. On this one we've got the driver on the left hand side, we've got the transmission in front of him, and you've got two big ammo racks directly underneath the turret there in the floor of the tank. There's two more ammo racks, one in the bustle and one directly behind the loader on the right hand side of the turret. On the left hand side we've got the gunner and we've got the commander in the cupola just directly behind him. Engine squeezed between two fuel tanks, which are actually on the shoulders. They don't go deep down. The engine's quite big, although scaled down in size from the American tanks. It's kind of odd that there's only those two fuel tanks and they happen to be way up high where it's fairly easy to pen. Because you remember, it's only, what, 45mm did I say? Just do a quick check on that. Is it 45? Yeah, it is 45, yeah. So you could easily penetrate the sides of this tank, get the fuel tanks. But it's much easier to go for the bustle and get an ammo rack from this thing. So there you go, that's where all the modules are on the Type 61. So General Anonymous saves the day, wins the game for his team by staying alive and getting a nice high caliber into the boot. So he obviously was working very hard for that, and yeah, he deserved it, and he deserved the congratulations of his team members, because after all, without him, they wouldn't have a win. I hope you enjoyed that replay. Please give it a like, do subscribe to our channel, leave a little comment down below because it feeds the algorithm, and thank you for watching.